Hello there. This is Rick Weisberg with Oasis. I want to demonstrate how I make my tapered dubbing brushes that I use when I'm tying game changers or jerk changers. And there's a couple little things I've learned I want to share with everybody. So tonight I'm going to be making kind of a chartreuse and green material. I'm using Congo hair. This is a blend of chartreuse, yellow, and Kelly green. I'm also going to be incorporating some of these yellow and chartreuse legs to give me some contrast color and some movement. And then lastly, I'll be using some rippled ice fiber in chartreuse. So the first thing I want to do is get my wire started. By the way, I found with these large spools, if I get these elastic tippet holders that you use on your tippets, they work really well for keeping the wire from unraveling on you and stuff. So I start with just a little loop. I get it around this hook here on the ball bearing end, give it a good twist, and using my thumb and finger, I kind of move it over here to unwind it. I'm going to run some wax up and down it. Then I'm going to hook it on this hook and bring it around here into the rubber keeper to keep it while I'm building the brush. I have found that if I use, I'm going to cut a 1 inch, a 2 inch, and a 2.5 inch section out of this. But if I use all of that, I find that I have more than I need. So I'm going to just pull out some of this and not use it at all. Then I'm going to cut my ends straight. And then using my little handy dandy ruler down here, I'm going to cut off a 1 inch clump. And then I'm going to cut off a 2 inch clump. And then a 2.5 inch clump. Okay, so I'm going to start with my 1 inch clump on this end, put the 2 inch clump in the middle, the 2.5 inch clump up on this end, and I'm going to start breaking it down and smoothing it out all the way to the end of that table. Then I start with my 2 inch clump. This Congo hair is very similar to EP fiber, but just lots of color combinations and to choose from. And then the big 2.5 inch, you could go as much as 3 inch if you want to also, but the 2.5 inch makes for a pretty nice head up in the front. Okay, now I'm just going to try and get it, I don't want any blank spots in here. I want to try and get it filled as evenly as I can. I'm also looking for any clumps in here that I can break apart with my fingers. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to taper it. So what you need to get is get one of these plastic 3 inch spackle pliers, your Home Depot or whatever, and I've taken some 1/8 inch rubber, and about 2 inches wide, 3 inches long. I've used some glue to glue that to this, so I have a little extension hanging out here, and I put this on the wire. The other thing you're going to need is a pair of curved scissors. Can you see? You can tell how much, it's not a acute curve, but there's a little bit of curve to it. It makes it really easy to get in here and to cut the cut your fibers down. I'm going to start about maybe a quarter of the way back from the head of the brush, and I'm going to start angling. What I want to do is this is our 2.5 inch stuff. This is with a 2 inch stuff. This is 2.5, and this is 2 inch. So I'm going to bring this down to about where the 2 inch starts. Then I'm going to taper a straight line from here to here. This is where the 1 inch starts. Okay. and I'm going to hold it in place with this while I'm doing it. And I find that curved scissors, I can very easily get under each fiber, clump of fibers, and work my way, okay? Then I'm going to take, and then here I'm going to go from 1 inch down to about a 1/4 inch down on this end. So I'm going to hold this in place. And we're going to eyeball as straight an edge as straight a line of sight, a pathway to the end of that brush. Okay. Then I'm going to start on this side, doing the same thing. Start back a little ways, taper down to where I get to that 2-inch wide stuff. And then starting on the 2-inch wide, I'm going to taper down very gradually till I get to where the 1-inch stuff starts. And then start tapering down from that. So that's the base, that's your base of your tapered brush. Now I'm going to add some things to this, which I really like, the contrast and the extra added movement I get with these silicone legs. So since this is about 2.5 inches, I'm going to cut me one clump of these at about 3.5 inches. So I just lay it on my ruler, come in here about 3.5, cut that. Now with rubber legs and silicone legs, you pretty much have to do them one at a time. There's no short, quick way around it, but then you can be really careful about where you're placing each individual leg. This takes a little while to do it, but the rewards afterwards are pretty cool. And I just want that when the brush is made, I want the tips of these just extending a little bit beyond the body material. Okay, I'm probably getting now near my, I'm going to put maybe another one over here. Okay, I'm going to cut a little bit off these to make these a little shorter as I get into the shorter material. But you can see they're still, in fact, those are even, I cut those even a little shorter. Ooh, that might be a little too short, so I'm going to come down here so you can see how much I like them just extending a little ways past the body. Now I need to cut me some more. Actually, I've got I can come back after this is all done. If I've got ones that are longer, I'll come back and trim them down to appropriate so they're not sticking out too far past the edges, just a little bit on each side. But I like this orange highlight of this particular color. It just gives me some good contrast between everything just being green. And when you get the brush done, I think you'll see what I mean. Okay, now I'm getting into some shorter type. I'm going to cut these down to about, let's start at the other end. Let's see where we're at with the lengths of these. Where should these? Yeah, that's about a good spot for them. Okay, I need some longer ones, a little longer. Those aren't going to do it. Hey, what are these? Oh. I'm going to come back and cut these to the length after I lay them down here. There, and I just dropped my scissors. Now I'm going to come in here and just kind of make these, even these up a little bit. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to add some of the rippled ice fiber in chartreuse. And this I definitely am going to want to come to trim it after I get it all laid down. Just trying to, as even as I can, trying to hit for some of these empty spots, filling in the voids. Okay, then come in with my curved scissors, and if I got any flash rippled ice that's extending way past the edge, I'll cut that down too. There. Now, a lot of you guys out there I know have my table, and I've seen some videos online where people wrap this up too tight, and I'll explain why. I just do two counter wraps. Well, if you don't do that, when you pull this top wire over the top of all your material, you have a gap between your top wire and your bottom wire of the thickness of this hook. And I want those two wires right next to each other. I don't want them apart. So by doing that, when I bring this over the top, those two wires are going to be right next to each other. If I wrap it too many times and I go to pull it on this end and I pull too hard, what I'm going to do, that bottom wire then is going to go slack because I've locked it in right here. By only doing a couple wraps, it can slip. So when I pull it, this top wire here in a second, I will have equal tension on the top and the bottom wire. So now I'm going to just put on some wax. Then I bring it up over the top. What I like doing is I like putting my forefinger on this right here, and I bring it down right on top of the lower wire, make a little loop right here, and so it'll hook onto that our hook right there. And then I pull it a little bit, just enough so this comes out. So now I know I've got tension on both wires, and I've got even tension because this little knot down here, it can slip. So I'm making both wires tight. Then I just turn this to lock it in. I like wrapping back over itself instead of a bunch of spiral wraps in succession. I find those can slip, But if you take this wire and wrap it back over itself, it's not going to slip. You notice I have my pinky here holding this so that it doesn't spin those fibers yet. I'm not ready for those fibers to spin. And lastly, what I like doing is I like patting those wires down so that the wax can really hold on to all those fibers. We might end up doing a little trimming here at the end. Now, before you take this out, this is your last chance to make sure everything is evenly 50-50 with that bottom. Like right here, I'm about 3/4 on this side and 1/4 on this side. So I can just take my finger and push that undercoat back so I'm 50-50. Half of the material on one side and half on the other. So I'm going to go back through here and make some adjustments. So I'm going right down the center of that material, the Congo hair material, okay? That looks pretty good. Now I'm right kind of center. Okay, then I just slide this out and start spinning. I watch this gap right here. When it gets to be about 1/4 of an inch, I'll stop. And instead of using the dog brush, what I like doing for the initial unearthing of the fibers is using these curved pair of scissors. Because they're curved, I can come right along that wire, and because it's a wedge shape, as you're pushing forward, it's parting those fibers apart also. So you're not really having to pull as hard upward to unearth everything, but that is unraveling all those loops of material that's twisted around the brush in a lot less aggressive manner than using a dog brush. So you don't pull out as many fibers in the early stages of your brush before things are really tightened down, and nothing's going to come out at that point. Okay, but I come down here, I just kind of go for the big clumps with the, but I can make the point of that curved scissor, follow that top of that wire all the way down the brush, pulling out my, and I see some fibers that are a little long here. All right, now I can spin it some more. And then also, of course, counter spin this side. Okay, now at this point, we're ready to use the brush. I like holding it here so the whole brush is not going back and forth. I keep the movement of that wire from moving a lot this way, back and forth when I'm brushing. And I'm looking to get that core. If the core looks thick, what it is you've got fibers that are still wrapped around the wire core. And so you're unearthing them. Once you get, you can see that core is real thin and skinny, you know you've unearthed all those fibers. Okay. Now I'm going to go here and look for any really long fibers that might be sticking out that I don't want. Okay. And one last little spin. We probably got a 3/8 of an inch distance now, 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch distance between that wheel and the support. Okay. And then if I push on this, I can slide that right off the end. Don't need to cut it. And then this will slide off this hook on this end. And there's your tapered dubbing brush. It's all ready to be tied on a series of shanks and a hook. I'm going to do another video using this brush to make the fly, but I think that's all for now. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.